Well, here's the newest motorcycle project. My nephew outgrew his XR100 this summer, and we've kind of done some modifications to it. It's got a 120 kit, a BBR 120 kit in there with a high compression piston, bigger cylinder, cam, and a bunch of different stuff. It's got a bigger carb on it and a FMF exhaust system. And we're going to take that and we're going to adapt into the CR80 frame here. He ended up getting this for really cheap this summer. It's just a rolling chassis. It had a blown up motor in it. So we're going to take the XR motor and put it in here. So stick around, check out the video. Alright, 15-20 minutes later, got the motor pulled. And we're going to start checking out what it's going to take to get into the CR frame. Alright, so we're going to start taking off some of these unnecessary tabs on here. We're going to have to cut this bar out of it. We'll put a new bar up here a little further once it clears the motor. But the XR motor is a bit taller than the old CR motor, so we're going to get cutting here. Alright, a little update on this. Cut off some hangers, some of the tubing up here, just various stuff that didn't need on the frame. Cut this one bar off and took the torch to it last night and tried to straighten it out for under the motor right here, the little cradle. But it's just going to always look kind of bent up. It's so hard to get bent tubing to look straight again. So I'm going to cut this off here, end up picking up some metal, got some flat bar here and some tubular steel. Going to weld this stuff up onto here and kind of come under the new motor and just kind of bring it up and taper it in. Probably take the front mount, the lower tube off the XR. I'll show a little picture of that here and use the front motor mount from the XR, and we'll go from there next. So here's the XR frame. Here's that motor mount that went on here. It kind of bolts up. So we're going to probably take this lower tube off of it and weld that onto the other bike. Alright. Got the frames, lower frame bars cut out of here, and we're going to work on mocking up some steel tubing out of here and probably bring the old XR front tube down with the mounts. So we'll bring you guys back in just a moment when we get those fitted. Alright, so we got the XR engine just sitting in here. Went through and welded, just tack welded these two bars, left them long so we can cut them short and bring them in. But alright, we got the motor, the first motor mount set in here. Like the clearance we have on the front frame here. We got our bars from yesterday on here, and we're utilizing the bottom mounts. There's like some foot peg mounts on the bottom of the transmission that's not used on the 100 but maybe on other bikes. And we got a piece of flat bar at an angle going across from one of these bars to the other bar. So I'll pull the motor in a moment and show you guys that mount we got fabbed up so far. Well, we got the front engine mount mounted on here, and we're going to sand these down a little bit so we can run some plate gussets on the front and back, but getting closer. Alright, so here's the stock motor mount, the front motor mount for the XR100, and we're going to transfer these holes, the distance on here, to this plate and drill them out to a larger size. We're going to make two of these and mount them to the CR80 frame. So here we go. Working on the square tubing part for the other side. The reason we're using square tubing was because I had it around here, it was available, and I don't have round tubing and I don't have a tubing bender, so square tubing is going to work just fine for this. We're going to build a skid plate that's going to cover most of it anyways here. Alright, getting ready to weld this little section on, and what I did was I left this wing on here a little long because it's going to fit up here and there would be a square section of steel open I would have to cap. So what I'm going to do is heat this up once I weld it and bend it over and cap the end piece of the steel in and run over it a little bit to gusset it over the joint. So I'll show you guys that next. Alright, so there's the opening on the side here. We're going to cap off with this extra piece of steel here. Alright, now we're going to cut that flat and weld it. Alright, so what we're going to do next here is we're going to pull the motor back out, and we're going to finish off all the welded joints on here for the main motor mounts. And then we're going to install it again and work on these back mounts from the very top of the back of the motor to the pivot point on the swing arm. Really happy with that Vulcan welder I got. Welds thin wall steel really nicely. Alright, so we're working on the final motor mount, the motor mount that goes from between the swing arm up to the back of the motor. And we found a piece of tubing and we ground it down to the proper length to go on the swing arm bolt there. And we took some old nasty angle iron like this, and we're working on the motor mount to it. Kind of notched it, get the right angle, and we're going to weld all these back in. So I'm going to cut the other one and build the other one for the other side, and we will take the mount off and weld it on the bench, and we should be finished with motor mount. So here's the rear motor mount. Figure I'd get a good shot of this for anyone if they're going to be dapped in something like this. It was just some angle iron and a piece of tubing. Sits in just like that. Pretty simple. Okay. So we took some of the old circular tubing that we cut out down here and cut a section off of it for this upper frame brace, and we cut off the XR100 coil hanger, welded on here, capped in where this old cross tube used to go on here, capped in here, and gusseted this stuff down here a little bit. So getting pretty close to wrapping this up and painting the frame. So here's some of those parts we got cut. Anyways, these two parts I'm going to use. This is a different shape. This is for this 7 horsepower side shaft motor for this quad project I've been working on. I'm going to make a different manifold for that and adapt one of those Honda ATC carbs, so 200cc carb to it. Anyhow, so this is what they look like when you get them off that plasma torch with some slag. I need to chip that off and then sand it a little bit, and purposely had Dave cut the holes a little smaller because there's a little bit of taper to them, some kerf, and I'm going to drill them out to the proper size we need for this project, and we'll get drilling here. Alright, we got the XR manifold all welded up here to fit in the CR frame, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to true this up a little bit. Sometimes the heat can warp these plates, so we're going to actually true up both surface on the disc sander so they seal nicely for the intake. Alright, we got the carb bolted onto the manifold, and we took off the rubber boot for the air filter, and we made this aluminum plate here, and we're going to cut an aluminum tube for this to be welded in. We picked up this Master Pro radiator hose that fits the carb. Here's the number on it, and I think it's got a pretty good bend if we cut it to match up into, well, it'll sit like this, both on the carb, and should fit into this aluminum plate. So we're going to cut this down a little bit and start modifying this. Alright, well, our 1.5" OD aluminum tubing showed up, ordered on eBay. I think it's like $10 or something, and we'll mark the aluminum plate here, and we're going to pull this aluminum plate off, hole saw a hole in the center of it, and weld this to it, and should have our air intake system all set up here. Alright, just hole sawed that out, and I ground a slight few degrees off on this one so it kind of tapers out a little bit away from the shock, so we'll weld this next. Alright, not the most beautiful welds. I don't have an aluminum TIG welder, and I just have a wire feed, but they're on there now, and I ported the inside so kind of help with airflow a little bit, and we'll seal this on there. We're going to put a little black RTV gasket sealer to seal this portion to the airbox in there. But there we go. Alright, we got the intake all set up here. RTV gasket sealer this plate onto here and on the back side for the air filter plate. And we got our hose cut. Could not find our hose clamps, we gotta buy some more. And got it set up here and got our intake on here. So
the secret of such success in a highly specialized field has obviously been attention to detail. If the smallest part for the machine could not be obtained exactly as required, the company turned to and made it themselves.
So here is the differences on the chains. I would have thought they ran the same chain, but this is the CR chain. It's a 420 chain, and XR100 is a 428. For the time being, we're just going to run the same XR 420 chain because we got a sprocket back here, and we're still not sure what gear ratios we're going to be running. And here's the, I think it's a 13 tooth XR sprocket, and we ordered a 420 pitch sprocket. I'll have to get back to what bike it came off of. It might have been a 420 for a XR80, I think. So I think XR80s run a 420 pitch, but it's a 16 tooth, so it gets our sprocket a little bit bigger diameter, gets us a little higher off of the swing arm here. So we're going to put that on and get the chain set up here. Alright, so we're starting off on this again. We took a few weeks off, we had other things going, but me and my nephew are going to be putting the motor in today and getting a chain fitted to it and seeing how much further we can get. I think we should be able, we have everything to fit the whole air filter to the carb and all that stuff. So yeah, we got some fresh paint on here, everything's welded how we think we need it, and we're going to start bolting the motor in now. So here's another little shot with the coil installed here. We took the hanger off the XR100, and this was one of the lower bars from the original CR80 frame that came up through here. We ended up fitting this crossbar in up here. But yeah, this is a mount right off of XR100 we've got on here. It's kind of a tight fit to get it to clear underneath the gas tank, but we got it nestled up there, and that's what it looks like on that side. So here's the Airbox Setup again. We put that aluminum plate we cut out and welded an aluminum tube to it. I think 1.5 inch diameter. Got that radiator hose, got the carb. And it got pretty tight in here with the intake manifold and just the placement of everything. I had to tilt the carb at a slight angle to clear the throttle cable from the frame here. But I think if it's, I don't think it's going to be a problem with the carb at all. If it is, we might just need to lower the float level a tiny bit, but I think it's going to work. And what was that, 16 tooth front sprocket we put on here, Liam?
Yes.
That's from what, XR80?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's the same chain pitch as the original CR80. So we're going to put the chain on next. So one thing we're going to point out here is we ended up not using this bottom XR motor mount here. It was, you know, bolt goes right through here. We ended up cutting off, it looks like the backward C right here. I'm pointing out with the screwdriver. It was just going to be too close to the frame, so we removed that just to get a little bit more room. And these are the mounts we used instead down here. These ones were like foot peg mounts, were for another application, but we ended up using these two with the flat bar across the frame. Alright, here's the CR80 gas tank. It's pretty dirty. We got it flipped upside down, and I got some Sharpie marks here, and here is where we have to heat it up with a heat gun, and we're going to press it in with some tools to give a little more clearance for the tank to the head. So we're going to heat that up and see how that works. Well, you can see some mud on the tires. Liam, my nephew, has been ripping this thing around a little bit. We got to a point where we can ride it a little bit, and friend Mike gave us some used handlebars. They're all straight and everything. The original bars that were on the bike are pretty bent up, so Liam put on these fresh bars. The bars came with some hand guards. We got those on there, and him and his dad got some new levers and grips for it today, so put those on there. And what we're going to address now is we're going to work on, we had the stock XR100 header and pipe. We put this little adapter in here. I turned it on the lathe, but we made a stainless steel part for the FMF exhaust. This is the part we're going to weld in. This is going to be a slip joint for a two-piece, and I'm going to TIG weld this back here, and we have to do a little hanger down here. Alright, so getting ready to cut this FMF stainless steel pipe. The old XR, it used to come on the outside of the frame, and the CR project here, it's got to go between the shock and inside the frame. And cut off this hanger off it already, and I'm going to cut it right here. It's going to be a slip joint, make it a two-piece. This is some of that stainless steel I turned on the lathe. nice fit. Well, first time ever TIG welding stainless steel. Matter of fact, I barely ever TIG welded anything. But got something on there, it shouldn't fall apart. Here's a little tank spacer we made out of some aluminum here. To kind of space our tank up away from the motor a little bit. And we finally got the exhaust finished. We split it right here, did a slip joint, took off the old FMF hanger and welded on the outside. Did about a 6-inch extension out of stainless. And here we go. Had to kind of heat this joint and bend it a little bit, straighten it out, and did a final hanger out of aluminum up here. Got plenty of clearance for the tire and everything, so I think we're good. One other thing I want to point out was the reason we put this bar up higher off the head was we want to make sure we had enough clearance to pull the valve cover, because these valve cover bolts are quite long. Want to make sure we could pull the valve cover off in the bike so we could do any valve adjustments without pulling the motor. So that's kind of something to consider, is putting that crossbar up a little higher, make sure you got enough clearance.
This is the look of precision, style, and design. The look of the Honda Super 90. Early morning, clean mountain air, and the promise of a great day on your Honda Trail 90.
Alright, we got the bike all ready to go on the trails. Beautiful day in March here. Got a bunch of friends to do some trail riding, so we're going to see how it does.
Of course, if you must have 4 wheels, how about another Honda?
Seeing Liam on this thing is awesome. He's having a lot of fun. What do you think about it, Liam?
This thing rips.
Yeah. Seemed like a lot of work put into this thing. We're kind of wondering if it was going to pay off, but seeing Liam ripping around on it, it's definitely like those stupid Visa commercials, priceless.
And I'm sure there's gonna be some jackass that chimes in, but dude, you gotta consider what your money's worth or your time. F them. Well, there's a lot of time involved in doing this thing, but me and my nephew worked together on it. It was a fun winter project. What do you think? Was it worth it, Liam?
Heck yeah.
Nice. Yeah, fun bike. We're out here ripping around and having a good time riding today.
You meet the nicest people on a Honda. Built to take you all the way when nothing else can. Honda, world's biggest seller.